Record.
There
Oh, I'm in progress. I didn't know I was in
we
progress. Well, okay. Ta-da.
go.
Um, Welcome to Coffee with Cunts. My name is Saoirse Wong. I am a holistic women's health coach and tantra teacher. And this is a show about cunts for cunts with a couple of cunts. So today I have Brandon Gilbert, who is an honorary cunt, and a beloved and most darling friend that I've known for so long. It's slightly embarrassing. I've known you since you were like wee high. I can't remember, like 15. Was it 15 that
I
we showed up?
I literally think it was like 13.
Oh,
I think
Jesus Christ, even older now.
yeah.
Dude, okay.
That's
Anyway,
wow.
so I've got to influence you and you influenced me for a very long time. And so I like to think of you as my most beautiful change maker. Um, what the possibility of what men can become and are becoming, and soon to be, this is my thing, and I'm putting it out there for years in the future. If the Academy Awards is still around, director and actor, if they're still around when that comes, because that
Yeah,
we'll see. Could be something else by then. So, yeah.
exactly.
So, thank you for joining me today. And the reason I wanted to talk to you is because we always have such brilliant conversations about sort of the dynamics of men and women in the world and how it all kind of works. And you have such a great, expansive view. And being a young male in the world right now, where we're having to shift what masculine is or what it's representing, it's nice to see you starting to thrive in what that new concept could be. And I think that's a really important
Mhm.
vision for the world to see, is that, yes, encompassing a new future of how men can move in the world will create a thriving place for all of us.
Mm.
And that really excites me, because a lot of what we see is a lot of blowback of men, for the conversation we're talking about, unable to listen
Yeah.
to what women are saying because of a lot of fear that there's no space, and we then run around screaming at this toxic masculinity. But it's the ability to learn to listen and create safety that's really vital for us to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely something like I've talked to you about before that I'm learning, not learned at all, because it's a process
Mm-hmm.
from absolutely incorrectly. Yeah, the me and my partner talk about, and like, well, she brought this up to me, like true listening. Um, and something that is important with that I'm learning is like it. I think that what I've done in the past, for whatever reason, like whether it be because I was taught this or I've seen this, probably not taught literally, but just through example in my life, is like when men or me, when I listen to women, or someone's trying to express something to me, in the case my partner, I automatically go into this like problem solve mode. And then that leaves my partner feeling unheard, unlistened to, and unseen. But also, you and I talk about safety so much, like it doesn't create an environment for my partner to fully be herself. And that's and then I feel like I'm not listened to or whatever, because my intention was to help, right? Because my
Mm-hmm.
intent that's where you have to learn like this idea of intention versus actually dealing with like what's in front of you and how you make another person feel. And I think that's something that's just so far from anything that I've seen or been taught. Um, yeah, and if I can speak on behalf of men, it's pretty much virtually non-existent.
Yeah. Well, I think we were talking earlier, like it's a skill set, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a skill set that most of us are taught. Like we're a chunk of us are trying to figure it out and learn it and teach it and create spaces of exploration. But it always goes back to safety, right? Like human beings run on, is it safe? And if it's not, what do I do to make it safe or get away from it? Like those are kind of our that's how our brain runs right now, because our nervous systems are on such high alert no matter what. And that's society's structure. Society's structure is created to keep us in fear. That's how the ruling classes stayed a ruling class, and that's how hierarchies work, is I'm on top, I'm the best, anything below I dominate. And so when you're dominated, you live in constant fear. So the lower on the rung you are, the more in fear you are. And we can't create, connect, or become better beings if we're constantly in fear. We just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, like, I don't know if when you said this word, and it was maybe earlier, but it stuck with me, like control is
Mm-hmm.
something I really notice, and it has to do with this like very hierarchical like mindset, that maybe not even mindset, like something that's so ingrained in like the behavior of people, and I can only speak to myself, but I notice how threatened I am by like the feeling in my body when
Mm-hmm.
like my expresses like a true like independence. And it's something that, I have like different practices, so it's less about, oh, this is my feeling and I own it, versus, oh, this is something that is passing through me. But the feeling is so intense when it comes up, because I've noticed how threatening women are in general. And because I think specifically of my relationship, it's made me so, or continually more aware, I would, that's probably the best way to put it, of how I'm affecting women, and like how I'm listening, and my need to control something as simple as a conversation and make it about me. That impulse, but sometimes that actually manifests in my behavior. And then but when I really see like the person I'm talking to, I'm always a little bit ashamed, honestly, to be like, oh, I definitely made this person feel like, a lot of times it's a she, can't take up space, because of that control and that need to dominate. Honestly, it kind of, it really is that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I
Yeah.
and I by other men, probably, and then I have to dominate in order to not be dominated.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that's a really powerful statement, is men are more concerned about the domination of other men and how they're seen. And for a number of reasons, we've got hierarchy, we've got to do all this kind of things. And you guys are the most dangerous thing on the planet.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you're busy sort of shuffling for hierarchy to get the best resources, because we don't under you, because the masculine that's been in charge for a very long time doesn't understand the collective. And that's part of it is in brain wiring, part of it, like if we look at female male brains, and again, we have to remind that this is fairly new science, and they've only just started scanning the female brain in its entirety through the whole cycle in the past year or two. So this is 2024. So we don't really understand the female brain, but let's go really basic. Um, the way is that, so there's certain parts of the male brain that are way more developed than the female brain, and there's certain parts of the female brain that are way more developed than the male brain, for
Mm,
really good reasons. When we lived in community, those brains connected and talked, and we created community. We separated from each other, and this male brain decided it must be dominant.
mm,
And so everything that comes from it is right and good, and anything that comes from other is evil and bad. So we have a misbalance when we could be balanced and have this great thing. So the male brain is really good at using its physicality, which is why it uses its strengths to dominate, right?
yeah.
What if we used that body strength and physicality to create really beautiful things? Wouldn't that be interesting? right? Where
Mm,
the female brain is very good at connection and understanding the whole group and communicating it,
mm,
which is lovely. So if women were allowed to be put in a position to take care of community and collective, wouldn't it be a beautiful place?
mm,
So it's understanding that we have these separate brains trying to communicate to each other, but nobody is creating space for the listening of each other's brain.
mm.
And that's why we find each other unsafe, because we're not of each other, we're separate, right?
Right.
And we don't, like, I throw this one gets always thrown around, like the word love. Oh, we love you, I love you. But to love is to take something as yourself,
Mm,
right? It's so that I don't see separation,
right.
right? It's like I love you so much that what serves you serves me. Now we got to watch martyrism, like, because I've
Yeah.
seen a lot
Yeah.
of women that play martyr. That's not love, because now you're using this thing as an excuse to feel better or be seen.
Mm,
But to love freely is to go, I see you, I listen, I have feelings, emotions, those matter. I hold space for you, so you hold
mm.
space for me. It creates
Yeah.
more space, right? That's what
That's
communication.
the image, the
Yeah,
space.
it's space. It's always about space, because hierarchy is lack of space, it's lack of connection, right? And when you have the
Yeah.
masculine running, it feels nothing but lack because it's missing itself.
Mm. Yeah. Something that came up in what you're saying, because a lot of it resonates like on a personal level, is like when you talk about love, like this
Hmm.
idea of what's best for you is best for me, is that, that's actually not about the idea of what's best. And I think that to like get, maybe the word can be like past that,
Hmm.
it actually have that true kind of listening. Because there is a part of it, at least for me, that I feel like as people, we don't necessarily know what's best for us. And that like where we're going, let's say, can only come from like listening, like true listening in the moment. And that's like the best we can do. But ultimately, if we do that, then we're never going to be in like the wrong place or have the same kind of issues with safety, at least. And I think that's a key part of what you're talking about, what we're talking about right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's because the idea thing is very, I don't, I think about like male female context, but I think more recently it's been more using like masculine feminine like terminology, which, that's all just words, it's blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
thing about it is like very like unhealthy masculine in terms of like the like idealism, and like less connected to like this. I almost want to be like the chaos of reality is very feminine. Like we live on this planet that like seeming like it's out of our control to a certain extent, and
Hmm.
civilization that happens is like we try to control, and then we're this kind of full circle we're talking about with men and women, but it's all just you know um metaphorical. Like it's all a reflection of us.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's a great thing to talk about is the reflection. So in Tantra or really ancient faiths, chaos is the feminine and masculine is the order. Um, all things come from the chaos, um, or the Mahamudra, or whatever word you want it, depending on where you come from. All things come from the nothingness, the womb. The thought creates the construction, the word,
Mm.
right? So if we go, we can see when you speak of it in that concept. So yes, you cannot control the chaos. Like, for how, I think someone put it in a meme somewhere, and I thought it was really wonderful, talking about how a woman like if it was truly meant for women to be submissive, it would not have taken 2000 plus years of indoctrination to
Mm,
make us submissive, because it's against nature and we are nature. So forces of nature, um, when you try and control forces of nature, that in the end bites you in the ass. It does. Because
right.
nature will always win, but it doesn't matter how long you try and indoctrinate nature. She's going to have her way, which is
Mm,
kind of what's happening right now. It's 2000 plus years of indoctrination of telling women you are nothing but a vessel for a man's sperm for a baby to come out, and that is it. There's no humanity. You are my
right.
possession. You are my trophy. You are, and that is the prevalent story. And so the chaos is saying, I am so much more. And if you would let me be so, I could make you so much more. You could create worlds upon worlds upon worlds upon worlds, because I am all things. But
Mm,
control, not fear and unsafety in this concept, means I try and regulate it. I mean, look at how we regulate buildings, and only certain things can be built here, but I can drill over here, but I can't drill here. I will make sure that I destroy places that people or I deem unworthy, but that was probably the most valuable thing, but I didn't understand it. Therefore, I destroy, like, we can see that, like you said, the reflections. We are in this battle. I mean, use battle for lack of other word, of destruction, from fear of the destruction of chaos, without understanding that chaos is creation.
right. Yeah, that's actually a really beautiful thing to say. Chaos is creation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
So yeah, I mean, we look at Kali, my favoriteest, besides Pele, which is also destructive and chaos. Like they're destruction and creation, but we look at nature. Without destruction, we can have nothing new. And we need
yeah.
something new to create life.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really thinking about that because yeah, the chaos. It's so weird how arbitrary like the control and this like neat like when you were like talking about drilling here and there and you're like
Mm-hmm.
so this was just created or it's like society is just created by our like ideas which you and I talk a lot about like telling new stories. Like we have so much ability to actually use that in a creative way.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still, as a collective, I think,
Yeah.
so uh, like this almost arbitrary nature of like what we try to control and what we kind of try to create order out of instead of just creating. Like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Instead
it's
of a, but we've also this fear, this unsafety, sort of demonic force that we have, or if we were
mm,
indigenous, this illness. If we're from Tantra, we look at this as sickness and disease. And so you're looking at how do you antidote these things?
mm,
um, we're so sick, we think we're healthy. And so when someone tries to become healthy, the sickness destroys the healthy, or tries
mm,
to, right? So, and that's what we're seeing, is we're seeing cells. That's what we are. We're cells on this planet trying to find ways to be healthy. And the unhealthy things, cancer, like we look at cancer in bodies,
yeah,
cancer thinks it's healthy, right? The cancer in a human body thinks
yeah,
it's healthy, and it's the cell that should be in charge,
right. I get what you're saying.
right? And technically, it is the cell in charge because it's destroying the body, right?
Mm,
So if we look at the reflection of what's happening in humanity, the cancer thinks it's healthy, thinks that it is right, and so it's dominating and destroying anything that tries to stay in a healthy narrative.
Right.
And it's ruling, right? So, because when we find cancer in the body, it devastates the body till it's dead. So we're looking for antidotes. And I think the antidote is listening.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It makes me think about like why change is so hard
Mm,
for people. Because I think that I really do believe that most people are trying to do their best to be good people.
mhm.
That's the intention. The action could be so far from it, but I really believe that's most people's intention. And I think maybe to partially answer my own question, I think that's what sometimes really complicates change and when people kind of stray away from the sickness, because I think it's undeniable. Like I'm growing up in a generation where I don't meet anyone that isn't doesn't talk about their anxiety and things that they're struggling like, and simultaneously, like at least most of my friends, and lucky for us and for me, like we're privileged in the sense that we don't have to worry about our food or our housing and all these things, and much more than that, but there's still like this struggle that it should be fine, like right, like should be, in quotation.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's use first I'd like to go back because I think that yes, you're absolutely right. Most people want to be good. They want to be seen good. They want to hold themselves in goodness. And you're like action, but there's also definition. We have different versions of definition is what is good, right? Like what's
Definitely.
happening in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. And okay, look, I don't want to go deep into that because
Yeah.
I don't have a knowledge of the history. But let's be Israel believes it's right and good. Palestine or Hamas believes it's right or good.
Mhm.
Right? So we're looking at both things. Neither is is acting right or good
Right.
because they're violently trying to destroy themselves, which
What
is
do you
what
mean?
we're doing. So war is an act
Yeah.
that war we all can agree is not a healthy construct, but
Yeah.
it's it's a construct that we've created for dominance, for dominance of wealth, dominance of place, dominance of resources, dominance for the sake of dominance, right? And so the collateral for thousands and thousands and thousands of years is what's playing out right now, which is I'm right. I mean, it's all most wars are started religiously of
Mm.
my religion's right, yours is wrong. And to prove mine is so right, God is behind me, I shall kill you.
Mm.
And so I won, my God is right. And we just keep playing that story over and over again in so many ways. When the truth is, God is just a constructed story. Pick one, what I don't care. We could sit and listen to each other's version of the story and see where both align. Because then I would show what most religions are talking about is love. I can show love because I am taking you as a piece of me. I am seeing, yeah, I don't agree with some of the shit, but most of your story aligns with mine. Okay. But that's the language I needed coming from my place and your place. And so we find the unity in that way.
Mm. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's hard for me because I feel so far like I have like the only thing I would say like about like situation, like it's just such a crime how many innocent people are affected by the idealism of people in power, and
Yes.
that's just fucking atrocious and terrible. And that's why it's hard to like talk about something so extreme as war and stuff like that in terms of like grounding it in what we're talking about, because I think that people are so, if they're in these situations, they're so far away from safety that it's like the idea of a conversation is like, it's easy for me to say in my apartment in New York City, like I'm completely safe, and I,
Yeah,
but like that's something that for me is so hard to like talk about or address. And like I feel like in that conversation about safety, because I honestly have, for people in those situations, for us on the outside, it's very evident to me that like the listening and stuff like that. But for them, I honestly have no idea how to like reconcile what we're talking about in the extreme situations that s- lots of people are unfortunately in.
lots, lots, and in different versions.
Yeah,
Like there's
and
different versions. We can look at a highly abused woman in a relationship. This is the same concept because we're all part of the same collective. We're all part of the same cell,
right, yeah.
right? So if we take it like, let's take it to a bigger looking down of chaos and structure. And it's that fear of the chaos that the structure is imposing control, as opposed to being creative in the chaos. So that abuse is I'm right is right is might is right? So I'm going to find ways to impose myself on whatever it is I fear so I can see what I think myself is as opposed to looking at what myself is.
Mhm.
I think we're in this privileged place, right?
Yeah.
So we can have these conversations out of respect. Like this
Y-
is this is a conversation of respect. I abhor the war. I abhor another human beating another human, even though in myself there have been moments of such intense rage and fear that I have wanted to take a bat and harm other human beings. I know it. I have seen it in moments predominantly with my ex-partner, with friends, with people in the street. There is an internal rage of I need to protect myself. I am angry at your thoughts. I do not like what you are saying. Um, I'll show a minor example. I get to the train to go get my son from daycare. And there are Seventh day Adventists just standing there with their little sign that says, talk to me about the Bible.
mm,
Every time I see it, my body reacts violently. Like there's a
mm,
deep seated violence in me that just wants to run over, scream in their face, kick the signs, and just like it's there. And so but I have to understand that that is a fear. That is an injustice that I've seen coming up. So it is my place to look at it. It's not my place to run over and scream at them. But if they come at me, which the little Chinese lady loves to give me that little pamphlet, and I'm like, get the fuck away. Like, no,
yeah.
just no. And that's within my place, right? And that's kind of what
Yeah.
we want to look at. There's space for them to hold that belief. I do not have
Right.
to be part of that belief system, but I can let them have it. I can have my pissiness and know where my pissiness is coming from. That's
Yeah.
mature. And then move on with my day.
Yeah.
But we don't have the maturity or the safety to go, oh, I can just let you be. We have this, I am scared of you. I must destroy you.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Like that specific thing. Because I always think about that because I've spent a pretty great deal of time like being really interested, especially over the past, maybe not as much this year, but last year and the year before, being really fascinated by Abrahamic religion because it's so dominant in the West and I mean honestly in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just honestly wanted to understand what was going on. And I find that, the people with the strongest faith in their respective religions, whether it be one of the three, they're not like trying to prove anything to me. They're like, they don't need me to be converted. They don't
Yes.
need to, like what you're talking about, like this need to dominate, is there's none of that dominance. It's abundant. Because I think that like in any of those stories, like the lot, like God is abundant. Like there's not, it's about the individual's relationship to God as well, and my relationship isn't going to be like anyone else's. And if I'm really comfortable in my faith, then it really kind of, at least in my experience, like some of the best religious people I've met in terms of how they demonstrate. It's like joy. Even me, I'm like, I'm never gonna be a traditionally religious person, and I've taken a lot from many of them. But even then, I'm like, with those people, I'm always like, whoa, like this, I'm more curious about it. And I'm more coming from a place of like open arms. And yeah, it's like the safety thing, like we talked about. If I'm not
Yeah.
safe in, you need like, and then that creates this friction.
Hmm.
So you have to think I'm right too, and it's very evident of how confident I am and how I'm right based on how I'm acting.
Yes. Isn't that an interesting statement? It's like I myself included on days where I am connected to my system, my joy. I could give a rat's ass what other people are doing.
Yeah.
At the same time, I do have, being who I am, there is an undercurrent of wanting to create space and safety for many. So
Right, right.
there is a balance I dance with, but on the whole, and also depending on where I am in my cycle as a woman, again, the chaos in being a woman, it depends on where my cycle sits, right? Like that is a huge
Right.
factor. And like, that's the chaos that I think men have a hard time understanding, and any of us, is the chaos is, and it's not chaos, by the way. It just looks like it's chaos because it's misunderstood. It's like a forest ecosystem. We used to think the ecosystem was insanely chaotic. We didn't understand it, so we'd hack it down. And now we're understanding that biodiversity is so paramount to the survival of any forest and anything on the planet is biodiversity.
Mhm.
So the same thing is within a woman's body, the biodiversity that goes on within a female ecosystem and the cycles that we run through, to someone who doesn't want to sit and understand, looks incredibly chaotic.
Right.
But if I warned, which I didn't warn Dan, so he's probably going, why is it spring on the calendar, but she's such a fucking bitch right now? I'm like, right, I've slid into fall. I don't like him when I'm in my fall, right? Like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't like him in fall. Like in winter, I'm so like um otherworldly that it just don't, like, you have to really get me somewhere. And then spring and summer, I'm totally fine and lovely. But fall for me is where I am ravenously angry at the world, the situation, what's going on, and all of that deliciousness. I like my fall because that's my favorite person. I like being a bit of a cunt, hence the name
Right.
of the thing,
Yeah.
hence the name. But because there's power in pointing out this is wrong, this is unjust, and I have the language skills to still be like motherfucker,
Right.
right? So this is where the dynamic of listening comes in. Another layer for men to start listening to is, where is this person in their cycle? Like that's a really important thing of listening. Is like, when I'm speaking in this cycle, I love you deeply. I don't love Dan deeply, but that's the journey. I love him because he's a human being, but it's a different journey. So for you to piss me off in this part of my fall cycle would be a huge, because I do see you as me, right? We
Right.
have a different dynamic. So my language might be more curt with you if it happens in fall, but
Right.
it won't be I won't want to rip your face off.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a different journey, and that's where the listening skills also, that's another skill for men to learn, is like, oh, there is a deeper wisdom in the cycle of listening.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really lucky um that my partner has been like exploring her cycle because
Mhm.
it's been, I mean, it obviously has been very helpful for her, but I like personally feel like it's been just as helpful for me because of like I don't know, I just want to go back like talking about
Yeah.
like the it oddly like I think we've just called it that. And same with the earth because like you said we didn't understand it because it's now that I'm seeing that there's like literal like seasons to it. It's actually like very ordered, but in more of like a dance versus like order like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you like dance is a perfect metaphor
I agree with
because
you 100%.
you see like I don't my brain is not working. I don't know what kind of dance, but like you watch certain dance and it's super like everywhere and they're doing so many things, but they all know exactly where they're going to be. And I mean, I've spent a pretty good deal of time now, like especially the past few years, like studying acting. It's like it's completely like up to the moment when you're in it, but there's so much like structured involved and so many things like that, and it really is a dance. And yeah, it's so valuable. Honestly, like it's something that's so needed to be integrated. And understanding women's cycles, I'm talking about, that
Yeah,
needs to be
yeah.
integrated like to all of society as a whole, because it like fundamentally will. I mean, I have such a strong opinion about this, and I know this with certainty will be so like valuable on such a high level for all of us, but also like it will allow like society to change in like more of an unknown way where we won't have to like follow arbitrary like guidelines and like because so much of the shit we do now, I talk this about people all the time, like the industrial revolution initiated like this whole schedule that we're on and now we just arbitrarily follow it because that's how it's been, right? And like that's so removed from like our humanity. And I
Hmm.
get it, engage someone in a conversation. Oh, well, what do you suppose? What do you suppose? It's not about like this big picture, like, oh, I think we should do this. It's about like starting like we're doing now, like to actually integrate it so that we can go somewhere we actually haven't been as a society. So I get really pissed off when I'm like people are like, oh yeah, like let's like debate about it and like see like that's like actually fundamentally the problem is that now we
Yeah.
have to to like a new way of understanding. And then on top of that, there's actual seasons going on that were fundamentally like removed from, at least in any of the societies that I've lived in and grown up
Hmm.
in,
Yeah.
is so far removed from the natural cycle of nature. And so you add like those two things together and you're like, I have no idea what it's going to look like as we reintegrate these things or integrate, I don't know, depends on how you look at it,
Yeah.
back in being. It's so needed.
Yeah. My projector self goes, I'm here to give you the answers. Because
I
that is what I am here to do. Um, Fundamentally, my deep core feeling towards all of this is until society structures itself around women, we will never be healthy.
right.
Never. And I mean that in a context of mother child. Because to create a healthy society, future moving, we have to make sure children are healthy. Therefore, we know that the mother must be healthy, safe, and well taken, because she, in the mother-child state, is the most vulnerable creature on the planet.
Right.
And we do, as a mother, and stepping into this and being fully aware, but not until I'm actually in it, we do a fucking shit ass fucking job taking care of mothers.
Yeah.
Fucking shit ass fucking job. And so we're wondering why humanity is unhealthy. Well, when your first seed of life is so unhealthy, you cannot grow a healthy tree, right? If you plant a forest with unhealthy seeds, you or a farm or anything, it ain't going to grow healthy. And that's structurally what we've been creating for thousands of years is very unhealthy root systems of humanity because we focused it around the male.
Mm.
And then we focused it around the male dominance ego. So we didn't even choose a healthy male, which would have been kind of okay, but we chose dominance and violence, and right as might is our structure to build the world around. And so until the reverse of that will be creating a natural ecosystem of mother child is how we build our future. Then around mother child is grandmother. Then around grandmother will be all other genders, and then masculine and then male on the outside. And we can dance in between. None of that is rigid.
Right.
That's the thing, because I will eventually, thank fucking God, move into grandmother age, or move into an actual grandmother, or I don't know if my child will breed, and I hope he doesn't, but whatever, that's my journey and he'll choose that journey. Not that I don't want my son, like my son wants to experience that, great, but I don't want that inflicted upon another woman until it's healthy. How's
Right.
that? And so and then all of those other genders, like that outer ring, is where we can weave in creation, because the information will come from a healthy source. And
Mm.
then spinning that really beautiful outer web will be that strong, loving, supportive, masculine or male that can dance in and out. Because again, we go back to dance.
Mm.
That's what humanity could be if we let it unfold. But it will have to start with putting mother child in the center and making sure they are supported. And
Yeah.
not in the sense of like, I'm the man, I bring home the money, so bitch, do what I say. I
Yeah.
mean, really understanding that one child needs 18 other people to take care of it. It needs to travel in a pack of 10 other children. One mother needs 4 other souls around it to take care and nurture it. That's what I mean. It needs to understand that it can be fed whenever it needs to be fed, that its body is not judged or taken for granted, that it has home, it has rest, it has creativity. It is understood that it was a portal of entrance for this other being. It is not a baby shoot. Like,
Yeah.
we have a lot of work to do to get there, but that's what these conversations are about, is that's how we expand,
Definitely.
is by listening. Again, we go back, listening and having conversation about the expansion. So when you have this, people are like, well, give me something else. I'll give you something else. Here's this to think about. Being the antidote. How do we infect in reverse? Because what we were infected with before was that violence. It was a seed. It was one aggressive, angry, pissed off male who probably didn't get to sit in the hierarchy, but learned how to swing something a lot harder and just started whacking people. And then we started following them. Probably how that story started. And then everyone went, hey, I get more shit if I whack people harder. And then I start collecting more
Right.
stuff. And then And then if I have more stuff, then more people listen to me and I get more stuff, right? And so we spilled out that way.
Right.
Because in essence, that's what it came from, is one pissy male somewhere who didn't feel safe enough or loved enough or whatever the poison is that took him, and just unfortunately had a bigger swing and a bigger stick.
Mm.
And it was just one person.
Yeah,
So
that's a funny way.
so can we be the antidote in the other way?
Right. Yeah. No, like you said, that's why like these conversations are important. And like just I just feel like community is the biggest thing. It's the biggest antidote to everything we're talking about. Like and that is on the basis of like we're saying like true listening and stuff like that. But it is like so needed, real community and that kind of collective understanding, especially when you're talking about like mother-child relationship. It's like, this it takes a village. Like it's true. It absolutely is true. And if it's not that, there is going to be some sort of lacking.
Absolutely. Well, we're seeing the lack. We're
Well, yeah,
seeing
that's
we're seeing the lack. I consider myself a single mom, even though my ex lives in the apartment with me. He participates as much as he participates, but I'm the one doing the momming and
right.
the dadding. He occasionally steps in and dads and he plays with River, and that's wonderful. But on the whole, everything falls on my shoulders. My worrying for his future, my worrying for his present, my worrying for all of it, and finding the ways to support
Mm,
all of that fall on my shoulders.
right.
Now, if we lived health, and I have plenty of single moms, or I have moms with husbands who create more work for them. I mean, statistically, it sucks when women get divorced out of bad relationships. Statistically, we end up financially in worse situation, but emotionally and physically, we're in better situations. We have less work, we have more time to ourselves, and that's just
Mm,
removing the husband, because children are a lot of work. And I know myself, when I get to remove my ex, I will have less work. It'll be great.
mm,
But how sad of a statement that is, right? Like how really sad of a
yeah.
statement that is, when if we lived communally in a healthy community, not in a patriarchy reverse where we think where women are dominant. It's like true matriarchy is a web
Right.
of everyone included. That'll be fascinating. I want to stick around to see that.
Mm,
I'd like to see stories written about that. That's what's really, because this all comes back to story too. Like, what are the stories we're telling? And I say it all the time, tell a better story. I have yet to see stories created yet for us to look at, like in Hollywood, or where you're going to go and work. The stories are still dominated by men, and it's still an ecosystem of dominance. And there's no other view for me to look at. So I'm going to keep
mm,
repeating that story.
right.
Right. We do like the story right now of the multiverse, but even within the story of the multiverse, it's still a masculine hierarchy that we fall into. And we're going into it out of avoidance of dealing with the damage we've done here. Like we
Mm.
like the multiverse to avoid ourselves again.
I'm curious, like when you say matriarchy, is that like by definition what you're talking about in terms of like the mother-child relationship in terms of how we structure society?
I
Because
think, yeah,
because
in
maybe
context, yes. For a title, yes. But I think I would prefer just to call it humaning.
yeah, okay, yeah, because I'm just like the well, no, maybe this is the right way to put it, like the resistance to the labels. It's like at least like in my mind, I don't know about how I actually like feel about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, to me, like patriarchy is the opposite of patriarchy, and it seems like an extreme on like the other end of the spectrum versus the way I can digest like everything you've been saying in terms of like starting with like the relationships, like that makes so much sense to me. Versus like I honestly don't really know what matriarchy is, to be honest with you.
Right. And
I don't.
most people don't. They think that the matriarchy is the reverse of the patriarchy because that's how the patriarchy scares us into not having a matriarchy because it says, look what we're doing. So we'll be on the bottom if they come on the top. And that's not okay. Let's go to brain structure. A woman's brain looks at things collectively and cyclically because that's how
Mhm.
the hormones run through our body. I'm being really simplistic and not bringing you sciencey words, okay?
Yeah,
So
fair enough.
where the masculine brain is is very straight lining, problem solving, and the female brain is too, but she goes through her cycles and she looks at everything collectively to get. That's why sometimes when women are standing to look at something and guys are like, just get to the answer. I am looking at everything, not one thing. So that takes time to process. Now, my brain, and this is in studies now, the woman's brain processes very fucking quickly. It's why we speak quickly.
Hmm.
And the male brain is actually a slower processing. It needs more time to digest because it should be physically moving when it's digesting. It would digest better. It's why you see young boys are like, move, like River. When he's learning something new, he has to be moving. It's fascinating. But I'll see a young girl or myself, I need to stop and process and then move.
Hmm.
So we look at bodies. Not all people, not a thing. This is a generalization, but it's a large generalization.
No, I got you. It's not black or
So
white at all.
yeah, so the patriarchy is like, well, it's going to be the reverse of what we are because that's how we think, right? So if a matriarchy comes in, that means I'm just going to reverse it. Really, ugh. A matriarchy is a collective, and that's how she thinks. She's going to think of the whole thing. She's going to take time to digest and come up with proper solutions that serve everyone,
Hmm.
right? Look at how mums work. Okay, I'm looking at what my children need, what my husband needs, what my mother needs, what my grandmother needs, what my friends need, what the community needs, what my house needs, what my car needs, right? I'm looking at all of these before I have an answer or a solution.
Hmm.
So a matriarchy is going to look at the collective and run in a collective and run in a healthy cellular way.
That
So
makes sense.
not the reverse of the patriarchy, because if we have women in charge, and I'm going to say, I love what Mona Hathaway says, and I always preface it this, not the foot soldiers of the patriarchy women, but women who have embraced their cycle, their body, their beingness in whatever version that is. Those are who I want to be leading and having conversation and in charge of. Predominantly Crohn's, because they've lived the life and seen much more and have
Oh,
more wisdom. So predominantly a crone, which is why ancient cultures, the grandmother was the most important. Everything went through grandma, not grandpa, grandma. So that's a healthy culture.
right. Hmm.
I know, something to think about, right? And you're absolutely right. Nobody really talks about what a matriarchy really is because we're so scared of a patriarchy and we're so scared of the reverse of that happening. I get why men are scared of women. Like, you're scared of us being in charge because you're scared that we'll do to you what you have been doing to us for thousands of years, right? Okay, as a being, what men have been doing to women for thousands of years is fucking terrifying. I would not want that done to me,
Right.
right? So, of course, I don't want that to happen. So, I will fight tooth and nail to make sure, especially if my brain thinks hierarchically, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to stay at the top of the pile
Right.
in whatever version I can.
Yeah. Top top of the pile. It's
But
good.
there is no pile.
No.
A pile of shit. Okay. I'd want to be on the
Fair.
pile. I don't, I want to spread the shit out to let things grow still, but whatever.
Yeah. It's funny. I know
Mhm.
we haven't woo about it either. The whole "it's all an illusion anyways" thing. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah, we can go woo woo. I mean, yes,
I don't
if we
know.
go woo woo for a minute, none of it's real, but it is. But
Yeah, no, it,
right, like it's real because we're here. So again,
yeah,
it goes back to tell a better story. Like if we were monks way back in many of our lifetimes when we first met, we could sit in the monastery, meditate our way out of it and then enlighten. We're down amongst the muck now to truly become the enlightened. And that requires us recognizing what is actually going on and seeing it for what it is.
yeah. It's a physical process right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's not that much work that needs to be done like up here. Like in my opinion, in my experience now, it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's practice. It's like it's the showing up. It's so much of it is like, I mean, it's hard. It's easy for me to say, but like making the mistakes
Mm-hmm.
and having to like it's hard for me, but not talk about what could be rather than like no, it's like literally showing up now, shutting the fuck up and listening.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
Yeah. And I think that's a good place to leave it where we started from.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Full
Yeah.
circle.
Full
Yeah.
circle. We are shaman. We speak in circles. So
Definitely.
yeah, we'll leave that. So yeah, so
Cool.
I think we will continue many more conversations as my honorary cunt. And if anyone wants to get a hold of this beautiful soul, I will put his information, all that fucking jazz. It's all below. Hopefully I
Yeah.
get it right because I'm the one editing the shit. And
Yeah,
if I didn't get it right, you can message me and I'll figure out how to return a message.
we'll
So,
fix it. Yeah,
yeah, we'll figure it out. Like that's the point. We'll figure it out. So thanks for
exactly.
sticking around for this most amazing conversation. Please leave
Thank you.
comments or concerns. And if you have asshole things to say, I will respond to you in maybe smile, you're too emotional, and go get me a beer. Those are your three responses if you're an asshole. That's your journey. So have a great day.